games that have been around since 2016 and are still active are, well, known as good games. Their community loves them, the reviews speak for themselves, and they don't get constantly duked on for being terrible games. After all, it's 2025. 2016 was 9 years ago. For something to last that long on the internet and in gaming, it's got to be the best of the best. If you look at any other games released around the same time, I would argue that they have all made a substantial impact within the community and are well loved by most players. You've got Stardew Valley, revolutionised farming simulators. Dark Souls 3, my boyfriend won't ever shut up about this one, made a comeback for the Souls franchise. Uncharted 4, Thief's End. This one needs no explanation. What a way to end Nathan Drake's story with a bang and a half. Persona 5. It brought JRPGs from AA studios into the limelight and made me simp so hard for Ryuji that you wouldn't even believe it.
For real?
If you search for any of these games, the top things that come up are all positive. It makes perfect sense as to why they're all amazing. Most of them opened up the gaming world in one way or another, or expanded on what was already loved. These games are still talked about to this day, or at least I talk about them. So, yeah, it's my video, okay? So why on earth is it that when you search for Dead by Daylight, the top results are negative within the community forums? There's been a large series of different issues in the game, but it still reigns supreme in the 4v1 category of online games. Today I want to look at the good, the bad, and the downright ugly side of DBD and find out why it still is one of the only asymmetrical horror games that are out there. If for some peculiar reason you've clicked onto this video with absolutely no idea to what DBD is, then let me shed some light on the subject for you, my poor oblivious viewer. DBD is a 4v1 game where you've got 4 survivors and 1 killer.
Hello.
Most of the time. There was that one time where we got 2v8 and that was pretty cool, but the core game is 4v1. The aim of the survivors is to complete 5 generators that power the exit gates to escape the killer, and the aim of the killer is to, well, stop them from doing that. You with me so far? Good. The killer has to hit a survivor, usually twice, to down them and then throw them onto a hook so they can sacrifice the survivor to the entity, which is this overseeing being, but is kind of irrelevant for this video, so we skip past that part of the lore. Each survivor needs to be sacrificed for the killer to win. There are other ways for the killer to win, such as killing them with their own hands, well, Maury's. I really quite like that one. And there are other ways for the survivors to win, such as the hatch. God, I miss the old hatch mechanics. In order to complete the game in the main way that's intended though, the generators need completing. To repair them, a survivor must spend 90 seconds on a generator, which then decreases with the more survivors you have on the gen. Or increases if you play with Alex, who can't do skill checks to save his goddamn life. As a survivor, your best way of escape is to work together. Yippee! Not only on the aforementioned generators, but also with the killer. Since there's only one killer, you want to ideally have one survivor running him around while the rest are busy putting their fingers onto live electrical wires. What does running around mean though? Well, your one defense as a survivor is your legs. That and flashlights, but mostly legs. You should have one survivor who is playing the distracting part of the team, because if the killer is just guarding the generators, then no one is able to have any fun whatsoever. There's many different mechanics, including perks, vaults, different killers, items, add-ons, etc., but it's all a bit too complicated to explain. If your grandma watches a stream of Dead by Daylight, she'll probably be able to guess that this guy is bad and you want to run away from it. You repair generators, you avoid the person, monster, thing that looks like this, and you run away. It's pretty easy. The problem comes in the fact that if you've spent many hours in the game, such as yours truly, you'll probably be able to agree that I've just provided an overly simplified explanation of the game. There's a lot of background information that's needed if you want to actually be good. To be honest with you, I completely forgot that there are tutorials on DBD, and they're just bad, aren't they? Don't get me wrong, the premise of DBD is pretty easy to grasp. Hold R1 on gens, hold R2 to run, and just get away from this. A monkey could do it. In comparison to more elite strategy games like Counter-Strike, there's nothing to it. But the tutorial itself teaches new players bad habits. Looking at the Survivor one, There's literally just bad information in these. It teaches you to completely waste a pallet and go straight into a locker after saving a survivor. The killer then finds you. What on earth is the point of this? There is absolutely no way Behaviour could develop any sort of tutorial to teach you everything about the game. There's just too many different things that you simply need to know to be considered good. So you're stuck simply losing again and again. Anyone who's ever been bad at something can tell you that it's no fun to lose. It's sucky and makes you want to do something else that you're actually good at so that you can actually get some dopamine in you. So the other option is looking at guides from content creators or looking at the wiki, which is cheating really, isn't it? You shouldn't have to go outside the game to learn the basics of the game. And I'm not talking about the best perk combinations that go really well together or how to loop the killer infinitely. I'm talking about how to even know what you're up against, like what the artist does. You know, the bare basics to even stand a chance. This video is actually very well timed. I've got a friend who's just started playing with the assistance of my boyfriend and is just managing to get his head around the game. Just a little bit anyway. The quality of that gameplay is still up for debate. I asked him what he's felt whilst learning the game, and he said that he thinks the main concept of the game is simple enough and makes sense, like what I've been saying, but he thinks that the transition would be more difficult if he didn't have Alex help him out. Again though, that's an outside source, so what good is that? Having a game where you need someone to even get the basic concepts, such as Demogorgon's portals aren't visible until he goes through them, meaning they can't be destroyed, or that you should try and run around the same area if it's a safe pallet and then leave when suitable. Both examples are mechanics within the game which can be argued to be pretty basic fundamentals. The fact that new people can struggle so much to get into the game doesn't really explain why it's one of the only games that manages to stay afloat. There's been a handful of competitors to it, which we'll explore later, but none of them have come even close to capturing people like DBD does. In theory, it doesn't make much sense. If there's a brand new game, then everyone should be on the same level. No one should have any knowledge advantage, meaning that it should be really exciting to explore something new equally. It's a shame that it's not like that though, because nothing else has caught on as much as DBD has. It could be said that this is because of the more complicated ways to play the game that it makes it stick longer than other games, but again, we'll talk about that later. So perhaps it not being beginner friendly is actually an advantage. After all, it's not impossible to pick up. In the past few months, I've had my boyfriend and another friend get into it from scratch and it's been alright, but that's with external help. Maybe the community is actually a majorly good thing for the game? The community is a very bad thing for the game. In all seriousness though, there are some positives and some downsides, like with most communities nowadays. Despite how old the game is, there's still an extremely active fan base with some downright impressive fan content. This Springtrap should just flat out be in the game. This is fucking sick! There's absolutely no denying that the people who still play and share DBD content online keep the game in the spotlight. I know for myself, I spend hours of DBD videos on in the background whilst I'm working. It's lovely white noise, listening to screaming in fear, and complaining about teammates and
no, it's just the left.
Complaining about the game. As amazing as it must be for Behaviour to effectively get free advertisements though, word of mouth and amazing cosplays, fan art, etc., does it cover up the crowd in the background that yells about the game whenever they can? I'm fully aware that the complaints about the game come from more experienced players, rather than those just getting started or in the middle section. As I mentioned before, knowledge is one of the most powerful tools to effectively play the game, but that knowledge comes repetitiveness, and this is only enhanced by the community. Think about it. When you first started playing DBD, what was one of the first things you searched online once you got into it? The best perks? And if you started playing the game around the same time I did, you would run Dead Hard, Decisive Strike, Self-Care, Life, Unbreakable, Will Make It, all of these perks which were the best of the best. Oh, and a flashlight is a must, so just make sure you teabag the killer when you can. They can't even see it, but it's the thought that counts. And then you do it again, just for the sake of doing it again. As amazing and as loyal as the community is, or can be, is a better way to put it, it has its downsides of perhaps making the game repetitive. You could argue, and I completely understand the point, that, well, it's Behaviour's balancing issue. You can't blame the community for that. And yeah, I 100% agree, it is Behaviour's issue. The community does just highlight the best of the best easier than it would be to find them in the game naturally. This is the same with every game, of course. The best is going to be highlighted and people want to use the best. It just makes logical sense. When you type Dead by Daylight on YouTube though, the top videos that come up are the best survivor perks, the best runaround perks, the best killers, the nurse obviously, it's been that way for fucking years. You don't have to go digging to find the best and you don't need to be skilled to have the best. You simply buy it and grind for it. It's like a dragged out pay to win scheme. I would say that overall though, the community is a positive thing. I mean, Noob 3 hasn't been around for a hot minute since most of his videos got removed, but there are still people who talk about it and who tried to be him when he was doing his Toxic Nia series. It's the people who make this game memorable and it's the people who make the game more accessible for newer players. Behaviour sure as hell isn't going to take the time to teach new players how to play, nor will they take the time to make accurate tutorials that actually teach newbies the better techniques. So whilst the community may make the game a bit more repetitive, arguably they also teach newer players how to play better than what the game does itself, and they bring iconic memories into the game, such as Baby Dweets, which, you know, is my username on the game. No game wants to be associated with the term pay to win. It's a negative term no matter how you twist it around. Overwatch 2 has been flunked on as one of the main reasons that it's awful, alongside many others, but for me that's my personal pet peeve. If you don't know what pay to win means though, it's essentially games where to actually be good, or sometimes even stand a chance, you've got to throw more money into it than what the price of the original game asks for. One of the most popular examples is Genshin Impact with their gacha system, where you only get one go once a week, if that, if you're playing consistently, and you tend to just get the same character over and over again. I don't want this stupid fucking wolf boy anymore. Mobile games are really bad for this, to the point where Alex was drunk one time and doesn't even remember purchasing some lunchboxes for Fallout Shelter, but just woke up to find £10 gone from his account in the morning. One which I keep seeing everywhere, but haven't had the enjoyment of playing for myself, is Dungeon Keeper apparently. That's just from what my friends on Reddit say though, I can't really comment on it. A lot of games ask for more money for things like cosmetics, which if you're interested in learning more about, I've actually linked a video above because I've talked about this topic before. But skins and customization options have been well established within the gaming industry for absolutely ages now. It comes as no surprise that a game as big as DBD has hopped on that bandwagon. The way DBD disguises the pay to win though is pretty smart. I don't see a lot of people talking about it enough. And if it is ever brought up, then it's always contradicted with, well, the nurse is free and she's the best killer in the game. And like, yeah, she is, but like, meta doesn't seem to be shifting anytime soon. But there have always been things which the paid for survivors and killers are just flat out better at than the free ones. That isn't to say that any of the free perks you get are necessarily bad. One of the perks in the meta right now is Tinkerer, a hillbilly perk, which you get for free. That will change next week, hell, maybe even before this video comes out, because I've been writing this for a while now. But, you know, it's still the best right now. There are certain characters and perks you can get only by paying. The Shrine of Secrets is an outdated and unreliable source to get perks, so that does not count. So in some people's eyes, it's automatically pay to win. But the problem is, you can go into a game as Dwight with nothing but lockers to carry you through the game and still escape. This topic is very controversial online. A lot of people prefer to use the term pay to have fun instead of specifically pay to win. A lot of the fun and exciting perks or killers are locked behind paywalls or very long drawn out grinds of iridescent shards. Some completely unique perks too. When you first get in the game, you don't have any boom totems or scourge hooks because they are on characters which aren't unlocked from the base. That's a totally unique category of game mechanics where you have to purchase them in order to get them. Whether you want to count iridescent shards as purchasing or simply progressing in the game is up for debate, but I think one thing we can all agree on is that it takes a hell of a long time to get them all. Before most recent updates as well, all characters, no matter if they were old or not, cost 9,000 iridescent shards to purchase. That's mental. So really, I suppose it's paid to either reduce the grind or have more enjoyment from the game. Personally, I hardly ever use any of the base characters anymore, because I've just played them all too much. With the exception of the Nurse and Huntress, those two are forever my favourites. I think Behaviour is actually pretty smart with this. They don't make licensed killers or survivors really overpowering to avoid being called pay to win. On the other hand, if you don't invest money into the game, then it's undeniably more boring. Grinding in a game isn't fun. Having plain cosmetics also is not fun. Not that cosmetics are necessary by any means. No one's holding you at gunpoint and forcing you to buy the Feng Ming bunny outfit. But if you didn't have the floppy ears, the game would be significantly more depressing. Does this play out in favour of DBD or against it? Honestly, I think it's a toasty warm middle ground. It gives players who don't want to spend any money a way to feel like they're not at a major disadvantage, but they are 100% missing out on some of the fun. And by some, I mean all. It's all the fun. The fun comes from the semi-regular new content that DBD releases. The most recent chapter right now is the Castlevania one, with Dracula and the guy with the cool slash down his face. I'm sure Castlevania fans are clicking off the video right about now. The new content and what gets players excited, especially when it's an already known franchise. Take a look at the DBD Steam charts page. The highest player count was when the original Resident Evil chapter came out. It's no surprise whatsoever that a well-loved gaming franchise combining with another well-known gaming franchise, merging together a single-player horror game with a never-ending multiplayer horror game worked wonders. Who could have seen that coming? Even for myself, before the Stranger Things chapter came out, the game had been sat in my unplayed section for a good few months. And then it came out and boom! Me and my friends were running away from the Demogorgon as Steve Harrington. In no other game can you do that. The fact that Behaviour even gets the opportunity to combine such a beloved franchise into their games is amazing, and it's something everyone's got to appreciate. It works vice versa as well. I had no idea what Castlevania was before DBD released the recent chapter. Now though, I'm watching it on Netflix with my boyfriend, who thinks it's a sin that I haven't watched it already. The fact they've even managed to pull such big IPs like Chucky, Mike Myers, Alien, Stranger Things, and hopefully soon to be FNAF, really brings a lot of positive attention to the game. It then just comes back to the theme of pay to enjoy though. I've spent quite a bit on this game, more than what I want to calculate. But I'm glad I have now because I get to switch it up a lot when I'm playing with my friends. And the fun with switching comes from the fact that there are so many well-known faces you get to play as. Even the original IPs, which Behaviour has come up with themselves, are also really unique and, I've got to be honest with you, downright terrifying. The Unknown is one of my personal favourites, or least favourites, depending on how you look at it. Granted, there's been a few, especially recently, that the community has had some negative opinions on, to say the least. But they're still trying. In all seriousness though, I have never played against Skull Merchant, ever. And I've been playing since they released The Unknown practically daily. There's an insane amount of matches which are against the same 5 killers over and over again. Those being Chucky, Nurse, Alien, Nemesis, and the other Resident Evil fella whose name I can't remember right now, and I'm refusing to search it up. One problem that Behaviour does have is that if the killer comes out and people don't like them, then they just get entirely ignored after a patch or two. Like, what happened to the twins? They struggled to balance them and then they just stopped trying? And I haven't seen them since they came out. It's a shame because that's such a cool idea for a killer. Having a miniature killer you can send out on a hunt is such a unique concept, and they just gave up on it when people didn't respond the way they wanted them to. So instead of having 37 killers, it feels more like we've got 10, maybe? I mean, the guy on the main cover doesn't even get seen anymore. I try to play a range of killers not only to spice it up for myself, but also the other survivors. Even if I can't play the Dredge to save my life, I'm going to give it a go. All of this isn't to say that the content they add loses any value just because it's not as popular as another. Let's be honest, the Resident Evil DLCs are always going to be more popular than anything DBD can create themselves. But that doesn't mean Deathslinger isn't fun to play. They just have a bad habit of leaving any problems around for a long time. This section could probably be one of the longest in the video, so I'll try not to ramble too much. There are just a lot of problems which I can mention here, some of which are in the game for years, going completely ignored by behaviour. If you've played the game for a few years now, there's no doubt in your mind that you've been involved in a handful of glitches or suffered at the hands of insta-blinds. There are many things that were in the game for far too long that the community constantly attempted to bring to behaviour's attention, my personal favourite being the aforementioned insta-blinds. The story behind it is pretty entertaining. 16th of November 2017, the official Twitch Korean channel that streamed content for the G-Star event has a panel with Matthew Cote, the game director of DBD. With this amazing opportunity to get information about the game, they were asking him about the game's balancing issues. Near the start, one of the hosts stated that as the skill level increases, so does the power of survivors, resulting in an unbalanced game towards the survivors. He then proceeds to ask what Matthew thinks.
Yeah, so when you're at the low levels, killers have a bit of an advantage, and when you get to the high levels, the survivors have a bit of an advantage, but it's a very, very small margin. And something that we're looking at and constantly trying to calibrate.
So, essentially, a skill issue. The presenters found this hilarious and asked if he'd be willing to play a match of DBD as the killer right now, so that everyone can spectate. He obviously agrees, and he loads into a game as the Hag. Now, this match is against random people, which makes it even more hilarious because he gets insta-blinded not once, not twice, but 4 times in a row, one after the other. Matthew gets teabagged, stunned, and ran around like you wouldn't believe, and finishes the match with only 2 hits, one of which got instantly healed by adrenaline. Like, if this wasn't the perfect match to show him just how unbalanced the game is, then I don't know what would be. It was amazing to see the DBD game director actually start to get annoyed and frustrated by his own game after saying it was a skill issue. December 14th, 2017, wouldn't you know it, insta-blinds are removed from the game in patch 1.8.3. In the past, changes like this would take 1 to 2 years to come into play, but nope, the developer suffers, therefore it's practically instant. This is just a funny example of how behaviour taking action because they got embarrassed. There are many other things though that took them undeniably far too long to fix. I could sit here and list them for hours, really, but I don't want to, so I'm not going to. All you need to know is that it takes absolutely ages for them to go and fix anything. This is for any glitches, from visual ones, mismatched proportions, genuinely bad textures, all the way to literally game-breaking glitches which make the match unplayable.
What? Oh, dude, I didn't buy the Chainsaw DLC, no!
Just to give you an example of something that used to happen a lot, if a killer was chasing a survivor and followed them down a hole, such as the one in Criticised Asylum, and there was another survivor already there, they'd all just stack on top of each other, making it so that survivors could hold the killer hostage for as long as they desire. Super fun gameplay! As you can imagine, bully squads did this all the time, just to see how long it would take for the killer to DC. Thankfully, a lot of them were just pretty funny, in all honesty, but a lot of them were repetitive problems within the game, or out of the game. Frequent game crashes, especially on PC, weren't rare. But some of the problems DBD had, such as insta-blinds, like I mentioned, were actually features within the game which the devs just chose not to deal with. Decisive Strike being one of the major problematic perks that took ages to fix. Don't believe me? Well, it came out on the 25th of October 2016 in patch 1.2.1 as part of the Halloween chapter, and 14 days later, a staggering 9.29% of survivors were using it in almost all of their matches, making it the 10th most equipped perk. For a paid perk, you couldn't get this without buying the pack or excels or getting really lucky in the Shrine of Secrets. Obviously, they weren't going to release a brand new perk on the Shrine of Secrets though, that would just be bad marketing, so it's literally just paying for it. I mean, that alone should tell you how overpowered the perk was. It took until patch 4.6.0 for the perk to not be considered meta anymore, which came out on the 30th of March 2021. Or patch 2.6.0 depending on who you ask, which was still years later on the 19th of March 2019. Whether you want to count overpowered perks or abilities as a problem or game feature is up in the air, but clearly in the end, behaviour figured there were some problems since, they wouldn't have changed them otherwise. Why on earth did it take them so long to listen to their community? I have no idea. It's not like it was a secret of any of the issues people were experiencing. The fact that Matthew played a game with randomers and experienced it firsthand with how bad it was in the one and only game he played shows you how common it was. Not even just common, it was every game. So if the game has had this many problems which has made the game next to unplayable, how did it survive? As most of you know, DBD is considered fun. Now it is anyway. I'm not sure about back then. Is it fun enough to be able to compete with the other mainline multiplayer games? Debatable. But what about within its genre? Specifically horror games where they have a 4v1, or slightly different numbers, set up where the killers and survivors have to fix something to escape the killer. That genre. It's asymmetrical horror for the finicky amongst you. There hasn't been a large list of other games that have made any impact within the community, but in my opinion, here are the top ones that I would say most of you have probably heard about. Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, Resident Evil Resistance and REverse, and VHS, or Video Horror Society. I remember a time where all of these games had their chance to shine, and all of them fucked it up in one way or another. So let's take a look at what each of them did wrong. I got this on PS Plus, and it was actually a strong competitor to DBD. It had a bit more going on, and the aspect where you could actually fight back added a new layer to the game, making it stand out from DBD's running away or nothing else gameplay. The game had a lot more ways to escape from Jason, such as by boat, car, call the cops, loads of things. There's also a shit ton of detail put into the overall design of the game, such as certain counsellors, that's what they called survivors, being better at certain tasks, extra stamina, less likely to be frightened, better skill checks. They're just a few examples. This meant that it was a multiplayer game that intrinsically made a story feel alive through its gameplay. With it being released back in 2017, it was perfect time to be a great DBD competitor, especially since the game was practically unplayable back then.
Alright guys, so this game hasn't gone so well for us. You would have thought that playing in third person we would be doing a bit better, but nope.
Not to say that Friday the 13th also didn't have its fair share of glitches and problems, but it did one thing really well. It stayed true to the source material. Where this one went wrong was with its licensing expiring. Due to this, the game was delisted at the end of 2023 and it officially shut down its online servers on the 31st of December 2024. It lost some traction before that though, due to the lack of updates. DBD has the upper hand of being able to create one-off experiences that still match the game world due to the narration that they've set up. You can't just throw a Demogorgon into Friday the 13th and expect it to make sense. If there are ever any questions about DBD though, the answer is the entity took them, and that pretty much sums up any questions you may have in a nice little bow. Apart from with Tokyo Ghoul, Ken doesn't want to kill humans. That is the whole part of the anime. Why? Yet again, another asymmetrical horror based on the much-loved series Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A much more modern release though in comparison to Friday the 13th, where unlike that game, its servers are still up and running. Now, what made this game fail is still up for debate. Some people think that the skill trees are too confusing to get, especially if you're just starting out. It can also be extremely slow to level up, meaning that people stick to one character exclusively because it's too much of a pain. Another area people point to is the DLC. With the game being on Game Pass, many say that the price for the DLCs isn't worth it, and are especially less convincing for the casual player who just picked it up from there. Purchasing some of the DLC can add up very quickly, more than what the game costs. The community is another thing that people complain about, which is hard to ignore in an online game. Just stay away from Reddit and Twitter and you'll be fine, guys, I promise. But one of the main issues, especially initially, were the lobbies. So many people who were new or quickly checking it out on Game Pass were quickly turned away due to the long waiting times. Sometimes it went up to 15 minutes, which I can't say I haven't had before in DBD, but when you're offering a brand new game on Game Pass, it's important to give newcomers an instant hook. This is not engaging. This isn't a bad game, not by a landslide, but I think where it fails is the initial impression. with the complicated game mechanics, which can take weeks to even get your head around, and the lobbies, which players would leave if they couldn't play the character they've spent hours leveling up, it's easy to see what they could have done better. Arguably peaked in its first year and then just fell off a fucking cliff. Evil Dead was a game that many people were looking forward to. Then they were met with an infinite loading screen for about a year.
Eventually.
Despite many people coming forward with the claim from different countries, different broadbands, different everything, Saber didn't want to help by the looks of things. Refunds not given, blame placed on the individuals, and then eventually ignoring the support tickets altogether. I wouldn't say that's the best way to start a game launch. Aside from that though, mechanics of the game are pretty solid. Being able to fight back and defeat the killer, being able to play as each version of Ash and his friends is pretty cool for the fans of the series, and all of them feel unique to play. Driving cars, shooting demons, it's a different feeling altogether, especially when compared to DBD. The demon side of things though, I think I'm about to throw up just by looking at the camera movement. I get what they were going for with it being like that in the series, but this just... I get nauseous trying to play Beat Saber sometimes, guys. I don't need that feeling replicated on a flat screen. The tutorial for the demon isn't so much of a tutorial as it's a fancy moveset list. You don't get to practice against AI, and the systems are just so complicated to learn, especially in the heat of the moment, that it can make it challenging to even want to try. Saber only supported this game for a year and quickly brushed it under the rug to collect cobwebs, and probably meet the same end as Friday the 13th once the licensing runs out. I mean, they didn't even add any DLC to coincide with Evil Dead Rise, which was new during the game's DLC cycle. It's hard to be dedicated to a multiplayer game where you know almost from the get-go that there is no new content coming. I mean, for God's sake, it peaked on Steam with 568 players. The overall lack of support for the community and for the game itself is what doomed this to become another forgotten title. I remember being so excited for the release of Resistance, just to play it for like an hour and then never do it again. For the sake of simplicity and to stop me from rambling on for too long, I'm going to focus on the most recent version, which is RE-Verse. Released as a bonus to Resident Evil Village owners, this game is littered with so many problems. The concept is simple. Choose from one of 6 Resident Evil heroes, Leon, my beloved, I will always choose you, and enter a 6-player free-for-all. For some reason though, you get all the classic characters and... Hunk? Okay, that's fine, I guess. R.I.P. Ethan Winters. Each character gets a unique loadout, which lines up nicely with their overall style. Chris is an impenetrable fortress, while Claire is a traps kind of girl. Once you've chosen your character, you get a choice of 2 maps. It's just 2. Deathmatch is quite literally the only thing you can do. Even though the game can be surprisingly fun at certain moments, with the death mechanic being interesting within itself, the downfall is 100% the lack of content. For some reason, Capcom thought that it could shove every form of monetization down players' throats without actually giving any content to back this up. They even went so far as to lock some of the best skills behind a paywall, such as the ability to see green herbs, the valuable healing item, through walls further away. Whilst this type of aggressive monetization is sadly normalised now, most games have the ability to back this up with content. At least Overwatch 2 provides players with new characters and new abilities. With a total of 6 characters, 5 creatures, 2 maps, 1 game mode, this is a glorified demo, which is asking for your parents' credit card. Not to mention, as of writing this script, Capcom has just announced that the servers are also shutting down for this one too, so goodbye RE-Verse, you probably will not be missed at all. This game was probably the most hyped DBD competitor out there, with all sorts of Dead by Daylight content creators making videos on it before it even officially released. Not Ozdavra. This guy being one of my personal favorites. I don't know how to say his name.
That's not how you vote. That's not how you vote. Oh, fuck.
They released their first trailer in August 2021 where the premise was revealed. 4 teens needing to arm themselves with whatever random shit they could find to destroy the monster before it could destroy them. The trailer itself reveals one of the biggest issues in the game right off the bat. No one wanted to play the monster. Aww. You see, very early on in the game, the best strategy was revealed to survivors, which was to wait around the corner for the monster. That's it. This strategy was used more or less from the bat, where what should have been a fun game of cat and mouse quickly became mouse stands, mice shoots, cat dies, and then repeats. Suddenly you had to be terrified of every single corner in the game because you never knew what was waiting there when playing the monster. The map design didn't assist this either. With so many dips in the walls and boxes to stand behind, it was impossible to know if you should approach a certain area or not as the monster. The developers went on to claim that they simply didn't give a shit. They blamed on the players and said that they weren't going to make any drastic changes. Well, that's that then. No one wanted to play the monster since the experience was god-awful, which could lead to excruciating queue times, especially when playing as a group. The monster role and general overall experience new players get when joining the game was made even worse by the fact that they had a closed beta for the game. November 25th, 2021, the first official wave of randomized keys came out for access for a closed beta. These keys were completely randomized, which, yeah, I can see what you were going for. Everyone is about anti-discrimination now anyway, but this left a lot of major content creators feeling pretty mugged off since they couldn't make any content about it. Random waves continued to consistently come out until February 13th, 2022. The VHS servers go down for over 100 days due to an alleged security flaw. During this time, people were hoping that when it did come back, we'd have brand new content to try out in beta. Imagine everyone's disappointment when you come back and all that's changed is the store asking for your money again. May 26th, 2022. The servers are back, but instead of it being an open early access that everyone was expecting, it's still a closed beta with a key lottery again. Let's just turn everyone into gambling addicts to play a game at all. But this time it's made worse because anyone who is trying to play for the first time is paired against people who were playing the closed beta before, since there are literally no lobby boundaries at all. So people who physically couldn't learn the game were forced to be with people who had the beta before, and the devs expected this competitive game to go smoothly? Good job, not to mention everyone's accounts were reset. We're not done yet, no. June 6th, 2022, the official VHS Twitter and Discord gets hacked, leading to people losing their accounts for a week. And finally everyone, July 18th, 2022, the early access comes out with no marketing done for it at all from the actual developers. They are purely relying on the content creators who they've already neglected. This is one heck of a ride before the game even releases. So the failure of this one comes from their handling of the game before it was even released. Their lack of marketing and relying on people who they have already upset was stupid. Like, who thought of this? You can't compete with a giant like DBD without making people aware of it at least. The gameplay loop of the monster getting annihilated every game, amplified by the fact that the beta players had so much more experience and a PAP tutorial system, scared anyone away from joining. So, on the 9th of June 2023, the game's official Twitter, not hacked this time guys, the real game devs, announced that the game would be permanently shutting down on September the 8th, 2023. So out of the fine mainline competitors that I've mentioned here, 2 of them are literally unplayable. It's not as if Dead by Daylight is taking a knife into the game server and destroying it entirely. They all have a unique gimmick and they all have something that should draw new people in. It seems to just be incompetence that kills them all. So why is it a running theme with asymmetrical horrors to have this problem? Shooters don't. Marvel Rivals is the obvious competitor to Overwatch and that's doing really well. Even back in Overwatch Prime, Paladins was up there in terms of quality. They all seem to join a graveyard though, with the common theme of not meeting up to their potential. After all of that, do we know why Dead by Daylight reigns supreme? Well, it's mostly because apparently everyone else in the gaming industry struggles with a thing called marketing and making sure licenses don't run out. Despite it suffering of many problems over its lifetime, it does one thing really well. It provides frequent updates to keep its loyal fanbase happy. I don't think it appeals to many new players due to things like bad tutorials and the large amount of paywalls, unless it's a release of a massive new franchise into it, like FNAF. Still waiting behaviour. You don't hear or see a lot of new players. It thrives because the people who love this game still love it. They don't get bored, there's always something new around the corner, and for the most part, it functions as it should. At least now anyway. Anyone who tries to compete has a very tall and very rough mountain to climb due to the pure number of years they've had in the asymmetrical horror genre with very little competition. Personally, I think we can all thank Michael Myers for keeping the game alive and helping to open the gates to new licenses. Big up, Mike! Always knew you were a real one. Anyway, I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments. If you don't want to share your opinion, I would rather just support my channel, comment with your favourite dog breed and I'll judge you harshly. I really appreciate each and every one of you for watching my content. These videos take an insane amount of time to create, but I'm hoping to stay more consistent in the future. Remember to subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content and watch another video that's on the screen now to let YouTube know that I'm doing something right, or at least okay. Have a great day everyone, I will see you soon.